Okay, all right. Nina Ajdin. There we go.
Yes.
How are you today?
I'm alright. Could be better, could be worse.
Could always be worse. Could always be
Yeah,
worse.
absolutely.
It's warmer today here in Chicago, in the Chicago
It
area.
is. It was super cold the last 2 days.
Yeah, yeah. In St. Louis as well, it was freezing. So, whenever I saw like what the weather was, I've only been to Chicago one time, and I was during the summertime, and it was a great experience. But everybody talks about how cold it is here, and how cold it's been. Obviously, these last few days it's been colder than most. But I wanted to start there because you made an interesting post. Like, so we're
Oh,
here to talk about TSW and Kratom, but you made an interesting post, so I had to start there. About the cold. Why
yeah.
don't you share that?
Um, yeah, so, um, the whole cold thing and seeing people like complain about how cold the weather was and stuff kind of brought back childhood memories for
Yeah.
me. And I was born in Bosnia, so I lived through the entire 4 year Yugoslavian war there when I was little.
Yeah.
I was 2 to 6 years old at the time, so I don't remember much, but I get like flashbacks and things like that, and then I have to ask my parents if it really happened.
Yeah.
But it just reminded me of people complaining about those things, and those entire 4 years we didn't have electricity or heat, gas,
Yeah.
very minimal food, no water. I mean, just,
Yeah.
so I just kind of made a post telling people that they should, be grateful to have a roof over over their head and food and heat and things like
Right.
that, because the winters over there in Sarajevo, where I lived, were pretty similar to Chicago, actually. So it would get really cold. So you can imagine, what the winter would be like
Right.
over there with no heat. So we had to.
Yeah.
My dad was. I actually don't remember this part, but my dad was telling me how we would literally have to makeshift like little heaters out of cans and metal and stuff like that, and then go chop down trees, and then once all the trees were gone around the building, we would burn everything inside the house. So,
Is it
like window frames, tiles, carpet,
just anything that
books,
would burn?
belongings, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were just left with, four walls and just kind of slept on the ground. And
Yeah.
so it was, just kind of brought back those memories, like, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah,
So,
man, it's definitely good to keep it in perspective.
yeah,
So,
give some
so yeah, it's
perspective.
probably hard to remember certain events, but I mean, do you remember like what did it feel like kind of being in that environment? I mean, it's a war zone. Do you kind of remember how that made you feel, or?
I remember I have some fairly vivid memories,
Yeah.
but like, for example, one of them is I was standing at the window trying to look outside, and my brother he's 6 years older than me, but he was like sitting on the desk doing homework or something,
Yeah.
and he suddenly just told me, Nina, get down. And as soon as I got down from the window, a shell fell right in front of the building, and bullets just went flying
Whoa.
everywhere, including our window. So it was just like that split second just, saved my life.
Yeah.
And we spent some time in just a cold, dark basement when things would be really rough. And I have another memory of running across an airport field, and literally the entire city is surrounded by hills, so it would be snipers on all the hills
Yeah.
surrounding it, and you would have to run across to dodge bullets, to dodge the snipers. And I was really young, so it was just me and my brother and my mom at the time, because my dad was in the army. But anyway, this random guy saw, obviously, that, my mom was alone with two children, and he picked me up and ran me across because I couldn't run fast enough. I was really little.
Yeah.
So certain events like that, and I remember being in the hospital for quite some time when I was 4 years old. Was very malnourished, so I weighed about 9 pounds when I was 4 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
everybody was pretty much just waiting for me to die at that point because nobody could do anything. I had, the classic like big tummy from water retention and
Yeah, just
just
like
skin
a
and
skeleton.
bones.
Yeah. So you were bedridden at that time, I'd imagine, or were you able to do much?
No, I
No.
couldn't walk at
Yeah.
all at that time because my ankles were swollen too from all the water retention.
Yeah.
So I remember just kind of spending that time in the hospital and nobody could do anything really.
Mhm.
But thankfully, we had a friend who had moved out to Germany during the war and he sent some like powdered milk and bananas, and
Yeah.
that pretty much saved my life. So,
Oh wow.
because the UN packages that we were getting was just like not nutritious enough for a child that young,
Yeah. What kind of stuff came
developing.
in those packages?
It was like you could get like frozen peas or like rice.
Yeah.
You would be super lucky if you got like a tiny little bit of peanut butter or something. Like that was, like a huge thing for
Yeah.
us.
That's a treat.
So it was, that's basically what we survived on. So,
Oh wow. So when did you make your way to the States?
so we lived through the whole war and then we lived in Sarajevo still for 4 years after the war
Okay.
and then moved here in 2000. So I was 10 years old.
When you were 10, you moved here.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So after the war, what was it like still kind of like being in that environment? Because I imagine everything's being rebuilt.
Yeah, at that time everything was still pretty bad. The country obviously had to get money to rebuild
Right.
stuff. It was, I mean, we were living in poverty pretty much. My parents were working and not getting paychecks, and
Yeah.
we were getting evicted from, our apartment. So that's kind of, my aunt had moved here in like 1997 or something, so she was the one that helped us um, get over here. So,
Oh, okay. Is that your dad's sister or your mom's sister?
my mom's
Your mom.
half sister.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Man. Yeah, yeah, you made that post. I'm like shit, man. Like it definitely puts things in perspective, right? I mean, there are a lot of
Yeah,
people that don't have a lot or have a whole lot harder situation than your own.
absolutely. And I think, I mean, that's, not to invalidate anybody else's pain and stuff they're going through, obviously,
Yeah.
but it was just something I just felt like I should post that to just give people some perspective on,
Yeah.
how bad it could be because people are like, oh my God, it's cold. And I'm like, well, you have your heat and
Yeah.
you probably have a car and,
I mean, if
all
you're on
these
Facebook right
things.
now making this post, then you probably
Right.
have more than
Ex-
you're not sleeping on the street right now.
Exactly. So, yeah, I just thought I would give people some perspective, because gratitude is important in
Yeah.
life in
Yeah.
general.
It
So,
really is. Do you have like a gratitude practice that you like to do?
I don't do like journaling or anything like that
Mm-hmm.
very much. Usually when I wake up in the morning, though, I will like say to myself like at least three things that I'm grateful for. So even when I was, really physically ill, it would be like even something as small as just being able to move a pinky, like a finger.
Yeah.
So,
Just anything.
I usually I try to, while I'm laying in bed before I get up, kind of just like go over those things, and then sometimes at night too, like,
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have, food now and all these things that I, didn't have when I was younger.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I find that really helps. I try to just say things that I'm grateful for, like 3 to 5 things in the morning, like when I'm brushing my teeth, or I'm just up, just do it, like just movement, or I'm running or something. I'm just
yeah,
really thinking. I found that it definitely helps because there's so many things that we just take for granted.
there absolutely is, especially in this day and age. It's like everything is kind of available to everybody. We live in
Yeah,
the age of information and everything is just kind of
everything's instant.
instant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right now.
So it's like you could get whatever you want right now, and things didn't used to be like that. So, I mean, I think journaling would probably help more and actually
Yeah.
writing things down, but it still helps to kind of go over it in your head and um, helps kind of your mindset at least to.
Yeah. I keep thinking about the idea of journaling, but I still haven't committed either.
Yeah.
My in high school, I had a coach who made us journal for, I don't know, maybe like 6 weeks or so during wrestling season. And I went back and I've read those. It's kind of interesting to go back and read my writing from what it was like 2005, 2006. So I think about that like moving forward. It'd be cool to like if I did do that now, I should just commit, start doing that now, so
Yeah.
that way in the future I can look back on that maybe and read and kind of see the progression. I think that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, just to get the thoughts out there.
Yeah, I used to write a lot when I was in my teenage years, so about 2005, 2006, the same time
Okay.
pretty much. I used to write a lot of poetry and just like prose and things like that. So I still have like some of my notebooks
Yeah.
that I used. So it is really interesting to look back and be like, oh, I was, in such a different stage at that
Yeah.
point in my life than I am
Yeah.
now,
It's like a little
but
time capsule.
it really does help, especially if you're, going through something difficult or, some kind of hardship. It helps to just get it out there so you're not, bottling it up inside. And I really need to commit to it too, but, I just sometimes, and people keep telling me that I need to write a book about all my experiences, and
Yeah.
I just kind of usually lack the inspiration and motivation, but I kind of have a feeling it might happen one day. So,
Yeah. One day,
yeah,
that mythical creature.
I do. I mean, I do like even now sometimes, I'll think of something and just like type it in my phone
Yeah.
or, but it's usually just like random kind of, rantings and like
Yeah.
prose type of
Yeah.
writing. But eventually it could be put into like some
Yeah.
sort of memoir,
Have you thought of like a
so.
blog? There's no real format as
Um,
far as length or anything like that. You can just, it's a place that you can get your thoughts out there published.
yeah, I have one that's private on WordPress, but I didn't commit to it.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, I wrote a few posts and then just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
And I was going to, through my health and healing journey, I was going to do a blog, but it was just too difficult
Yeah.
at
I
the
imagine
time.
when you're trying to heal.
Yeah, I mean, I literally couldn't do anything by myself the first couple of years, so I didn't do a written blog. That's why I did YouTube
Yeah.
videos to kind
Right.
of record it.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe soon I'll be able to commit to something more.
Well, I mean, you're doing the YouTube videos. I mean, so that's great. At least, I mean, it's
Yeah.
some you're sharing your story in a way that you are able to. So
Yeah.
this is a perfect time to segue into that, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know if we should start with telling people what TSW is, or if we should just start like at the beginning of your story with it. Let's just start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning for you. So
Beginning of the
yeah,
story.
so just like take me back to your story a little bit. Actually, no, let's do TSW. So what is TSW? Let's explain that to people, and then
Okay.
we'll go back to your story.
All right. So TSW stands for topical steroid withdrawal. So it is an iatrogenic condition, meaning it was caused by the use of the medical treatment. Um, it was caused by the use of topical steroids,
Steroids. You're treated with
which,
steroids for like a rash.
yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of people, steroids are given so often now for like everything,
Yeah, yeah,
whether they're oral or topical. But so basically, it's an entire new condition that develops from your original. I mean, you had possibly eczema or psoriasis that you were using the topical steroids for,
yeah,
but then this causes an entire new condition, and it goes by a few names: red skin syndrome, steroid induced eczema.
yeah.
So it's a completely different condition than the original one that you were trying to treat is.
Okay. So is it also autoimmune linked then? Is that what it is? Would it fall under that autoimmune category?
No, it's literally a I mean, it is literally a withdrawal, but not the way that you would I mean, sort of the way you would think of any drug withdrawal,
Mm-hmm.
except it's physical.
Yeah.
So your skin literally becomes addicted to the topical steroids. And then when it doesn't get it, it starts to burn and gets
Oh,
red and,
yeah.
things like that. So it has that reaction of just like, you know, any addict would have that,
Mm-hmm.
the need to use it. So it's
Right.
the same thing except it's happening to your skin.
Right.
So it's a little bit that's why the terms topical steroid addiction and topical steroid withdrawal, that's kind of where those terms come in, but
Yeah. So if you did apply topical steroids right now, it would help as far as with like maybe some of the pain, but I imagine only temporarily.
right, it would help to some extent, and then as soon as I stopped, it would
It
rebound.
would hurt.
And
Yeah.
if I did it right now, it would literally take me back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
So all these years of healing would be
For
for
nothing.
nothing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I completely
And there's no like
have to.
set time frame as far as what the healing process can be for this.
There isn't too much research on it. There is some like case studies out there and things like that. The doctor that originally really came out publicly with it usually says up to 5 years, but there is people who struggle with it longer. So I'm going to have 5 years in June this year. So I'm kind of getting close to that timeline, but there is people who struggle with it a lot longer than that.
Really? So okay, so when did it start for you? What were the circumstances like? What happened? Tell me your story.
All right, so kind of a long story, but
That's what we're here for. Let's go through it. I may
yeah.
may pause you and ask some questions along the
No, that's
way, but
fine.
let's yeah.
Yeah, so when I was 10, so that was the year that we moved back or the year that we moved to the United States.
Right. So when you moved here, where did you move to exactly in the States?
Naperville. So I
Okay.
was here in the Chicagoland area, just
Okay.
like I am now.
Okay.
So I haven't moved much.
Well, it's a big spot, so.
Yeah. So yeah, we moved here, and that same year I got like a rash under my armpit that looked pretty bad.
Mhm.
So my mom took me to the doctor, and that was the first time that I was prescribed a steroid cream, which was a little bit of a higher potency hydrocortisone cream. So
Mhm.
just like you can buy over the counter, but
Right.
just a little bit stronger.
Mhm.
And so, I used that. It helped, and it helped for many years. But then the rash kind of started spreading into different places, and then I would have to go back and get different steroids, and
Yeah.
they would increase the potency of whatever I was using. And one of the big turning points I would say was when I turned 17. I lost all my hair suddenly. It just came out in huge patches, and I ended up shaving it and wearing a wig because I was really self-conscious.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, as a 17-year-old girl, you're
Being 17 is hard enough.
right.
Yeah.
So that was pretty shocking for that to happen, and they diagnosed it as alopecia, which is an autoimmune
Mhm.
disorder, but they didn't really know the cause. They didn't know, what
Right.
was going on. Um, so I lost my hair then. Like I said, I wore a wig, for a year, and my hair came back eventually after a year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a turning point because after that, well, that was the first time that I was prescribed oral steroids. So when my hair started falling out, they prescribed me like oral steroids and immunosuppressants to try to stop the hair loss.
Mhm.
And those things caused like huge side effects for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, because
And
they're just, I mean, they're just throwing everything at you that they can think
right,
of. They don't really know
exactly.
exactly what they're treating. They're
They had
just,
no idea. And so
they're treating
then,
symptoms, not the
right,
cause.
it's just a band-aid,
Yeah.
and then you're not treating the root cause, so obviously it's going to keep happening in
Right.
some way or another. And my health just continued to get worse. I graduated from high school at 17 that same year, a year early, and then started going to community college, and my health just started deteriorating. I had red spots all over my body
Yeah.
and was continuing to use the steroids, and then would sometimes have to go on oral steroids to clear it up because the topicals just weren't enough anymore.
Right. Meanwhile, you're probably extremely stressed, right? So you have all
Oh,
this stress and anxiety,
absolutely.
which can manifest physically
Oh,
as well, I'd imagine.
it definitely is kind of a cycle, creates
Right.
one kind of perpetrates the other.
Yeah.
So, then let me see. I moved to South Carolina with an ex-boyfriend of mine in
Yeah.
like 2011 or something like that. So when I was like 21, 22-ish. And that was when my skin got like really, really bad, and I was just covered like almost head to toe
Yeah.
in just burning red that just didn't look like even normal eczema. And I think that's when I developed red skin syndrome. That's when already the addiction had started to the
Yeah.
creams. So the creams had stopped working. I started having all these other health issues. I was constantly in and out of the hospital with kidney infections, like liver issues, stomach issues, all sorts of things, just chronic infection. Just, it was just completely miserable. I was in and out all the time.
Right.
I was failing classes in college because I couldn't
Yeah.
show up, and, I was dropping out and wasted a lot of money, unfortunately, trying to get a degree because I just was not healthy enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of the breaking point happened when I had my first seizure. So I was already having all these health issues. My skin was awful. I went to Mayo Clinic even to try to get help in Jacksonville while I was living in South Carolina, and
Mm-hmm.
they just gave me more steroids.
Right. I mean, that's the protocol, right? I mean, these
Right.
doctors, they're not usually educated on anything other than just like symptom treatment. You know what I mean?
That's the issue, and that's why I've gotten a lot more into like alternative care now and natural healing and stuff since I started this.
Yeah, yeah. Because the
Um,
pharmacy model, is just not, it's not sustainable.
no, absolutely not. I mean, Western medicine kind of puts everybody into, one box, and it's not individualized, and
Right.
everybody reacts just a different way, and they never usually get to the root of the cause. So,
Right.
all these years, it was probably over a decade that, I was going through all this and nobody knew what was going on. I was getting tested for cancer. I was getting tested for lupus, for
Mm-hmm.
other autoimmune disorders, and just all these different things. I literally have probably gone to like 50 dermatologists. Like, that's how,
Yeah.
crazy and bad it was. And everybody would just give me the creams, and just the one important thing to note is that they would just tell me to apply however much I wanted,
Yeah. Apply
whenever
as
I
needed.
wanted,
Yeah.
literally. So, I never knew that you're only supposed to use it for 5 or 7 days, that you could create. I mean, they would
Yeah.
tell you that it can thin your skin,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't, this condition was never mentioned, and most doctors don't know about it. So it's
Yeah.
not entirely, their fault, because they just weren't taught it in
Right.
school, so they don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, and the thing about this is, especially with health, we're learning so much all the time. And there's new science being published constantly, and the things that these doctors are learning is one usually a little bit outdated. Just by the time it actually gets into the curriculum for these people, and then two, they don't look at like a holistic
Right.
approach, right? They don't look at, do we address some lifestyle and some diet changes to help with an
Absolutely.
autoimmune disorder, right? Are you eating something that's causing a lot of inflammation and that you maybe
Right.
maybe you are allergic to, possibly. Who knows? Like, are we
Mm.
getting the blood work done to see? And a lot of these doctors aren't taking that time because, I mean, they're loaded down with debt,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And now they have to see X amount of patients in a day. And it just creates this vicious cycle to where it's not really like a healthcare system. It's like a sick management system.
Absolutely. And not to even mention the fact that, doctors make money off of drugs with,
Yeah,
um, big pharma lobbyists and such, which, I'm very, um, I spent a couple of years really trying to get rid of that anger that I had inside of me from, what they did to me because it was like, those are the people that you're supposed to trust, doctors,
yeah,
and they created this whole, and it's completely preventable.
yeah.
That's that's the craziest part is this condition. Nobody should be going through it,
Most conditions are preventable. That's the thing.
That's true too.
Yeah,
And it just, they don't, Western medicine just lacks so much, and they don't look at the person as a whole, the treating the mental, the spiritual, emotional, all these things work together,
right.
for the individual person. And unfortunately, I learned all of this the hard way, but,
Yeah,
it did help me grow and learn. And, now my lifestyle is completely different than, it was before. But, so to get back to my, how I got into this, let me think. So, yeah, so the first time, I was working in like a sandwich place in South Carolina,
yeah,
and I was at work one day, and I went to the bathroom, and I actually felt my arm like moving back uncontrollably,
yeah.
and I had no idea what was about to happen, but I had a seizure while I was on the toilet,
Oh, wow.
and I hit my head like twice going down, and was unconscious. So somebody found me. One of the customers, I think, found me just hanging out of the stall unconscious. And suddenly I was sitting on the patio, and I was so confused because this coworker of mine was sitting across from me, and she's like telling me the paramedics are on their way. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Like, you have
Why?
no recollection of even what just
None.
happened.
I thought that I went to the bathroom and then went on my lunch break because I usually sat on the patio,
Yeah,
that like the same exact spot. So I
yeah,
thought I was just like sitting on my lunch break.
yeah,
And so I was super confused. So, the
yeah.
paramedics got there.
You feel like you're kind of like in a dreamy state.
It's crazy. You really don't recall like any of it.
Yeah.
So it was shocking for me the first time, and it was a grand mal seizure. So pretty severe. And
A grandma seizure? What does
yeah.
that mean?
Um, the basically means when your whole body goes out of control. So you're
Oh,
completely seizing,
oh, okay.
like your entire body is
Yeah,
just shaking,
yeah. You
and
just everything just shut down.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I was taken to the hospital. I had another seizure, on the bed there in the hospital bed that necessitated benzodiazepine in my IV to control it. And at that point, I realized I can't do this alone here anymore in this
yeah,
state, and I need help. And so I literally bought a ticket right away to come back home to my parents,
yeah,
because it was like it got to the point where it was
yeah,
just unmanageable. Couldn't do it on my own. I mean, I had um, a boyfriend there and a couple friends, but it's different with family,
yeah. Family's a
obviously.
different support system for sure.
Right. And I had gotten to the point where I weighed like 90 pounds. I was like skin and bone at that point because I was so unhealthy.
Yeah,
So I just bought a ticket within like 3 days and just packed a suitcase and left like most of my stuff there and just flew back here,
yeah.
to move back.
So during this time, like, what was your lifestyle like? I mean, did you not sleep a lot? Were you on like what kind of things were you eating? Like, what was your general lifestyle like during that time?
Um, well, at that time I was not, I mean, I wasn't aware of how bad like processed foods and things
Yeah.
like that are. So, I mean, I wouldn't say that I was eating like completely unhealthy, but
I
I
mean,
wasn't
you
eating
were working at a sandwich
healthy.
shop. I imagine you're probably eating some stuff there.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So, at that, at that time, I was on like 10 or 11 or 12 different prescriptions
Oh,
at that
already.
time
Mhm.
already,
Mhm.
like a ridiculous amount, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't understand then, I was still in my younger years, like,
Yeah.
so I didn't really delve into like how important diet is and
Oh,
how
yeah.
important, all these different things are. So I was just kind of following the doctor's orders. So I
Yeah.
was kind of just trusting them
Yeah.
to
And if it's
tell
an older
me.
doctor, then who knows what information they're
Oh
using.
yeah,
You know,
they
there's just this huge period of just misinformation about health. I mean, I grew up in that. So, I mean, I grew up to a very rural family in Missouri, like on like a
yeah,
back like dirt road, and like they had a lot of white bread and sandwiches and just not a very healthy way of eating by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, they eat out a lot, but growing up, I mean, if that's all you know. I mean, that's all you know. You know what
right,
I mean? It's just that's just how you eat. And then
exactly,
you hear all this other this stuff like you don't want a lot of salt and you don't want a lot of fat and like don't eat this and don't eat that, but meanwhile these things that they're telling you to eat is really like causing disease. You
exactly.
just don't know any better.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly had no clue at that time. I did not delve deep into diet and natural healing and even herbal stuff until I figured out that I had TSW. So that was when I really started to learn about plants, and I
Yeah.
started becoming fascinated with like natural healing and
Hmm.
plant healing and
And this
things
is when
like that.
you had come back from South Carolina.
Yeah, so when I came back from South Carolina, I got a job at the same place that my mom worked, and I worked there for like a year or so, and my health was still bad. I was having seizures at work, like in the middle of the production floor. I would just drop and have a seizure, and constantly being taken to the ER by the paramedics. So my health was awful. Topical steroids completely stopped working. So I
Hmm.
was constantly having to go to the doctor to get high doses of oral steroids to
Yeah.
manage my skin at all. So completely blown up at that point.
Yeah.
I started to get completely hopeless about my life. I was in one of the darkest places I've ever been in my life. I did not want to live anymore. I just did not see any light at the end of the tunnel
Yeah.
because, I was going to all these different doctors and nobody knew what was going on. So, in my mind it was like if nobody knows, how am I going to fix it?
Right.
How am I
It
going to
can
get
seem very
better?
hopeless.
Right. So in the beginning of 2014, I was admitted between January and June of 2014. I was admitted into psych inpatient 3 times within that period for suicidal ideations because I was just done. Like I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not gonna live like this for the rest of my life. There's no way I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So I just kind of gave up at that point, and my world kind of crashed. It was like, there's no hope, there's no light, there's nothing. So that was when the third visit, when I was there, my dad started researching prednisone withdrawal
Yeah.
because I was on a high dose of prednisone of the oral tablets. So my dad started researching about that, and he somehow came across a blog of this lady who had like all the same symptoms as me. And he waited a while to tell me because I was really mentally unstable at
Yeah.
the time, and
Just
he didn't know how I'd react.
uh-huh.
But he came across an ITSAN, which is International Topical Steroid Addiction Network, which is an advocacy organization that
Mhm.
raises awareness of this and helps people through it. He came across them, so he did all his research, and he waited for some time to tell me until, I got home and settled in and stuff from the hospital visit. And so when he told me, and I watched a video of Dr. Rappaport, which is the leading doctor that pretty much, first came out public about this, I watched this 15-minute video and I just started bawling my eyes out, like, because he just like described literally
Like
everything
everything that
that
you're
had been
living.
going on,
Yeah.
like exact same everything, and I just started bawling, and like I was like, this is it, like this is definitely it.
Yeah. So it's like the first time that you actually felt like there was some sort of hope.
Yeah, because he in that video he specifically says everybody 100% heals eventually. And so,
It just takes
just
time.
hearing those words was like, oh my God, like I might actually have a normal life at some point.
Yeah.
So I was so hopeful, and I was just, bawling. And then I watched some videos of some of the people that were going through it, and I still had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
But I was so sure of it that I just literally like grabbed all of the steroids in my house that I had and just threw
Just
everything
cold
away
turkey.
like that day. So cold turkey.
Yeah. Well,
And
I mean, eventually one day you just have to stop.
yeah, I mean, with topical steroids, weaning off doesn't do much.
Okay.
So it's usually suggested that it's done cold turkey.
Yeah.
But I was on oral steroids and topical at the time, so my body went into complete shock when I stopped.
I would imagine so. Yeah. What was the reaction?
So the first week and a half, I was literally in a comatose state, like sleeping 23 hours a day. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
I,
your body's trying to like process that. It needs to heal itself, I would
right,
imagine.
and so I hardly remember this period of time because it was quite traumatic, but I just kind of remember my dad looking into my eyes with a flashlight to see if I was still responsive.
Yeah.
I was completely out of it. The rash spread so quickly that I was covered head to toe in what looked like and felt like third-degree burns. And I was oozing this lymph fluid. It was just like my sheets were drenched, and the whole
Yeah.
house smelled like it. And it pretty much smells like rotting
Flesh.
flesh. Like, it's completely dehumanizing. And so, yeah, the first week and a half, I was in that like comatose state where I had no idea what was going on. I was just like,
Yeah. So then that during this
out of
time, your
it.
parents were just kind of taking care of you, managing your I guess like the wounds. I don't blisters.
I mean, it's literally like raw skin all over. So if
Yeah.
you imagine sunburn times 1,000.
Oh man.
So
Yeah.
literally, it looked like I had no skin pretty
Yeah.
much. It
And you
was
weren't
completely raw.
so prior to going cold turkey, were you aware that this would be like an outcome at all?
I knew about the side effects, but I did not know how bad it was going to be.
Yeah.
And not to say that other cases aren't bad, but I do have probably one of the most severe cases
Yeah. That
out
you
of everyone that
how
has
many
been going through
how
this.
many people does this affect? Do you know?
Well, right now, I know the membership of ITSAN, the advocacy organization, has about 13,000 members.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you have to figure that there's a lot of people out there that don't know about it and are
Right.
possibly going through it. So, probably a lot more than that.
Yeah, the amount of people that get misdiagnosed or they're just, they're mistreated for so long.
And there's even been people that, use like hydrocortisone over the counter and they go through it, or people that use it for like an insect bite for longer than like 5 days and they still get the condition. So,
Yeah.
there's been reported cases of all these things that, just for
Hmm.
itching and
Yeah.
and you can buy this stuff over the counter,
Yeah.
which is scary. And it doesn't only happen from the potent ones that you get from the doctor. It happens from the
Right.
over-the-counter stuff,
Yeah.
and
Well, like you
it's
said, it's like,
readily available.
yeah, like you said, it's like the first thing that doctors go to.
Exactly. So anytime a doctor sees any kind of rash, no matter what it is, that is their, solution, which is not,
Right.
doesn't get to the root cause of
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
illness.
and whenever you're applying, especially to children and just growing, anybody that's still growing and developing, I mean, that's hormone therapy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, if you think of it like in young ladies, I mean, you're giving them testosterone,
Hmm.
which is a male hormone, or I guess I don't know if that's like I guess predominantly male hormone, right? The male driving hormone. So I mean, that's going to affect the way they grow and develop in a way for sure.
Hmm.
So it just doesn't seem like a very good practice to have that be the first solution.
Right, and it affects your adrenal glands, very much, which is responsible for fight or flight response, and so that can cause even more stress. Like I remember when I first started TSW, I was constantly like super cranky, and not just because I was in pain, but because
Yeah.
like all those hormones and everything was completely out of whack.
Yeah, well, your sympathetic nervous system is on fire all the
Right,
time.
everything was just,
Fight or flight.
crazy. And the first, year, 13 months or so was probably the worst. I literally couldn't do anything by myself. My parents had to feed me, bathe me, dress me. Every day I would literally just scream and cry at the top of my lungs until I would get tired, like tire myself out from screaming and crying,
Yeah.
and then do it all over, like go to sleep and then do it all over again. And I was pushed into bathtubs to cool the skin down and to prevent infection with like Epsom salts.
Yeah.
And I would literally spend like 8 hours in the bathtub because that was my only relief.
Yeah, like Epsom salt and did you ever mix any essential oils or anything with that or?
Yeah, eventually I started learning about essential oils, So at the beginning, I still didn't know anything about,
Yeah.
a lot of the natural healing. But as I started to learn, I started implementing more things, obviously, and, changing the
Yeah.
creams that I was using
Just
to
slowly but
natural
surely.
stuff, right? So, but the first few months were the most difficult, and then well, the first year or so was just insane. I would literally like, I would literally drop to my knees in pain and like howl
Yeah.
how painful it
So what kind
was.
of pain? Is it like a sharp pain or like a burning or?
It pretty much feels like you're being burned alive.
Oh wow.
Plus, you would add ants crawling over you and being stung by a bunch of bees. That's how I would describe it.
Shit. Being burned is one of the worst pains to me possible. Whenever I was a young kid, I don't know, couldn't have been more than like 4 years old. I stuck my hand on like a space heater. I don't know. It was just in this house. They had these old space heaters, and I touched it, and I don't know what degree. Maybe second, if second for sure. Maybe third, but my whole hand was just it hurt so bad. And ever since then, like that has always been the worst pain to me in my whole life, just being burned.
So basically,
I don't like
imagine that times 100
all over your
all over your
body.
body.
Oh
So
my
from head to
gosh.
toe. So
Yeah.
every time I would like even ease into the Epsom salt baths, I would be screaming because you're putting salt and
Salt on
water
yeah, like on
on
an
open
open wound.
wounds,
Yeah.
right? So it was just very painful. But then, 5 minutes, 10 minutes after I was in the bath, it was soothing and it felt better. So I would stay
Yeah.
in there and I would literally, eat meals in the
Yeah,
tub
because
and
that was the most
stuff.
tolerable place.
Yeah.
Do you ever do any cold immersion? Has that done anything for you? Have you tried that?
I've tried it, but no, it didn't really.
Didn't really
No.
help at all.
I've pretty much tried everything under the sun.
Yeah,
Most
yeah,
things. Um, I've done a ton of different diets and, supplements and all these different things over the last 4.5 years, but right now I'm doing traditional Chinese medicine, so I've started that treatment. That's one thing that I haven't tried, which is actually very fascinating.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Herbal medicine. So I just started about a month ago, so I
Hmm.
haven't had the chance to see progress yet.
Okay.
We've already had to change my formula 3 times because
Yeah.
the first two times that I did it, it actually made my arm a lot worse because it was too much for my body.
Okay.
My body's still very sensitive and not very strong, and so I just got my new one yesterday. So I just started it yesterday, which is milder herbs, both topically like a compress and then internally.
Yeah.
So hopeful that this is gonna be, this is gonna help.
Yeah. Have you seen any sort of has there been any like particular diet that's been better for you? Any foods that you've noticed have caused certain reactions for you, or kind of what's your diet like now?
So I'm one of the people in TSW that has not noticed any change with diet,
No relief from
unfortunately.
diet change.
No. So I've tried like protective diet, low histamine diet. I went vegan for like 2 years. I did a candida cleanse. So I did like all of these different things.
Hmm.
And it never seemed to make a difference. And obviously, I do know that diet still makes a difference,
Yeah.
even if I don't see it on my skin.
Yeah.
But I know that it's a factor. So, I pretty much I don't limit a bunch of stuff now. I eat very little gluten, not much at all really. Um, I pretty much just eat clean, mostly plant-based, no processed foods, no sugar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
just
it doesn't
pretty
have to be complicated.
clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
People try to make
doesn't.
it very complicated, throw a label on it.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're eating mostly plants, you know what I mean, whole food,
exactly.
not, cut out all the processed foods and the sugars and,
Sugar is a huge, huge thing, and it's like the most addictive drug
yeah, it really is.
that we have, and so many people, when I did, I felt like I had yeast overgrowth at some point, so I did a whole, cleanse on that, and that seemed to help a little bit.
Yeah,
Like improved my energy levels even, and my
yeah,
sleep and everything. But it does make, a difference, but for my skin, it just hasn't.
yeah, it just hasn't had any sort of effect as far as that.
No.
But yeah, I just wasn't sure if like maybe. Yeah, like there are other effects, like maybe like your energy, like you just felt better just from like one particular way of eating, or if you were eating, say like just a ton of bread, for example, and maybe that just caused a certain reaction with your skin, and then if you maybe notice a difference with cutting out a certain food.
Well, I was diagnosed with celiac disease like years ago, like 10 years ago.
So you've been gluten
So,
free for quite some time.
right. But I actually discovered that I don't actually have celiac disease, so it was the steroids
Causing that gluten intolerance.
causing like the
Yeah,
test to be, because I went to two doctors and two doctors said I had it, and then another two doctors said I didn't have it.
yeah.
So I actually
Tests are funny.
don't
Yeah.
know, but when you're in that state of constant inflammation,
Hmm.
tests will come up with false positive
Yep.
too. So it's kind of interesting. Same with allergy testing. Like it's pretty useless during TSW because your body is pretty much sensitive to everything when you're in a
Yeah.
flare of TSW
Yeah.
because your IgE levels are super high. So doing allergy testing pretty much just gives you a bunch of false positives that you're not really allergic to, but
Yeah.
at that time while you're flaring,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
you
actually
you
a
might
common
react to
response for a
it.
lot of people, believe it or not. So,
Yeah.
if you have, for example, say like you eat eggs every day, and then you take one of those tests, it could show that you have like an intolerance to eggs.
Yeah.
But that's just because you're going to have that in your bloodstream because you're eating that all the time.
Right.
So it can give a lot of false positives as far as what's really happening.
Yeah, you know what the interesting thing is? Last week I was talking to my traditional Chinese medicine practitioner,
Hmm.
over the phone. And she works with one of my old dermatologists that actually treats TSW in Chicago that I used to go to. But they kind of work together on treating some TSW patients. And he came out with a webinar that talked about a little bit about diet and foods. And she also said the same thing to me on the phone. She said, we think that in about 90 to 95% of people with any kind of skin condition, diet makes no difference at all.
Hmm.
So I thought that was really interesting
That is interesting.
because typically you would think that, but the way that the webinar that he did was a lot about the barrier of your skin. And essentially, what he was conveying was that you first get a skin reaction and then you might develop an allergy because your skin is broken and your barrier is broken, and then something can get into your body.
Well, what if you're having a reaction from a food and it's from the inside out?
Well,
And then that would be a symptom manifesting
right.
from the inside
So
out.
there are true allergies,
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, but like, their opinion is, and from what they've seen in their patients, is that it doesn't.
Yeah.
And this is a highly respectable dermatologist. He went to Harvard, and he actually practices alternative medicine as well. So he kind of
Yeah.
mixes both Western and alternative medicine. So it was kind of interesting because, you're always taught that, I mean, obviously, if you have an allergy, you're going to avoid the trigger.
Mhm.
But like, I don't have many allergies. So, there's no like certain foods. The only thing that I know for sure can be a trigger for me is stress.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I've,
Yeah.
you know, and it's really difficult to manage stress when you're in a situation like this
Yeah.
because the pain and everything
Constant. Yeah.
causes
It's
the
a constant
stress,
reminder.
and then the stress causes
Yeah.
and it's a vicious cycle that
Right.
it's hard to get out of, this
Yeah.
like negative feedback loop that is difficult to get out of. So, but I know that's one of my main triggers as far as skin goes, and not necessarily that it actually causes a flare,
Uh huh.
because like a flare kind of just happens. It doesn't.
Yeah. There's
It's
no.
There's no rhyme or reason really.
It just kind of happens
But it can
on.
definitely make it worse. Like I notice when I get super anxious or if I get angry or something, my face will turn like bright red out
Yeah.
of nowhere, just because I'm stressed out. Because
Mhm.
I've always told, even the TCM practitioner and like my dermatologist, I'm like, I feel like my body is in constant fight or flight mode. Like probably since I was a child too, because of like the
Yeah.
traumatic events that I went through,
Yeah. That's
and
not a
then
fun
all of
feeling to be
that.
in all the time.
No, and I have to say, the going through TSW has been another huge trauma, and a chronic one at that, more
Yeah.
complex as well. So, I have, I used to be a very social, outgoing person. I always had to be around people and didn't like being alone. I was always afraid to be alone. And actually, it was to the point that it was really unhealthy because I was codependent. And I would get into these toxic relationships with people, which was not healthy, obviously. But,
Yeah.
the social part of me was I was very extroverted and would go out and have fun. And then throughout TSW, it's kind of weird because when I lost my hair in TSW, which was during the first year, so like month 2, I lost all my hair. For the first like year or two, I would go outside and I didn't care what people thought. I would go out bald with, like a scarf on my head and my face red, and I didn't care what people thought.
Yeah.
And then suddenly, like, 3, 4 years into it, it was like a flip just kind of switched inside of me.
Yeah.
And now I'm like scared. It's hard for me to even like go to the store
Mhm.
to, talk to people like even like this. It was like I was so nervous about this,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
just get nervous about everything. I have a constant, it's like my body is in constant like panic mode, and
Yeah.
expecting the worst to happen and kind of
Yeah.
catastrophizing. So
Why do you think that? What do you think caused that switch? Do you have any thoughts?
honestly, I don't know. I mean, growing up, having bad skin, I was always like, I would go to the store and people would be like, "What is wrong with your face?" and like point it out.
Yeah.
And those things kind of stick with you. And I was bullied in school, and I mean, I had some, relationships where I was emotionally abused. So, that all decreases your self-worth and self-esteem. So I don't know what caused the switch. I wish I knew, to be honest. I've been trying to figure it out myself because
Yeah.
I'm very self-aware of the things that my mind does, but I can't quite stop
Yeah.
the reaction of some things. So I don't know what caused the switch, but it completely made me, introverted and like scared to go outside. And
Yeah.
logically I know that if I go outside it's not like everybody is staring at me, but that's what my mind
That's how
and
you
body
feel. You feel
think.
like
Right.
everybody's looking at you in this moment.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
Um,
super overwhelming.
right. Was that kind of the beginning of I don't know, maybe like a faster down spiral, which kind of led you to like those like that year where you were checked into the hospital? Was that kind of the beginning of that for you, or?
um so that was before TSW. So
Oh, that was before TSW, so my
yeah.
timeline is a little off then. Okay.
Yeah, this is like in the last 2 years that it has gotten worse again.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
actually,
I follow you now.
when I started TSW, I became a lot more positive, and I completely changed as a person, like 180 degrees. Like I was
Yeah.
completely different from having experienced this, being pretty much trapped between four walls and just yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of inner work.
Yeah. I
Like
was thinking
you're faced with, your darkest
you,
parts of yourself,
you have
and
no
oh
choice.
my God, and you have to process it,
Yeah.
you're kind of stuck. And it was a blessing and curse at the same time.
Yeah.
I learned how to be alone and to enjoy my own company, but now it's to the point where I'm like scared to be around others. So there needs to be
Trying
more
to
of a
find that balance again.
balance. Yeah, that's the hard
Swung too
part
far
right
the other
now,
way.
Yeah. So that's what I'm struggling with now. And I do like things like this, even, doing
Yeah,
this
I think doing
this
things like this
podcast
and
kind of
your
pushes
YouTube
me out of
channel.
my comfort zone. And then
Yeah.
I feel better after doing it because I'm like, oh, I accomplished,
Yeah,
something.
it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's never as bad as I think it's gonna be. It's
Yeah.
just my mind is constantly like
Yeah, our minds will do that.
catastrophizing. They
Um,
play tricks on
yeah, you
us.
can't believe everything that you think, which is
It's
such a weird thing
crazy.
to think about, right? Because I mean, not all of our,
Mm.
I mean, I believe that like we have these thoughts, but like not all of those thoughts are I mean you, because sometimes I mean I have this problem of negative self-talk.
Yeah,
I'm very
I think
type
we
A.
all
I'm
do
very
to some
hard on
point.
myself. I'm like, Adam, man, you're fucking slacking. You need to do
That's me
more.
too.
You needed to get it together. You didn't do enough.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I've been working on that and just trying to be better about it. So I try to keep in perspective that not all of those thoughts are me. I'll tell myself I'm slacking, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm slacking. So I
Right.
just you just gotta put those to the back, of your head and
Yeah, it's
discredit those.
and I mean you're kind of the way I see it, like you said, your thoughts aren't really necessarily um your thoughts, I guess is the best way to say it. You're kind of the observer of those thoughts.
Yeah, you can be the observer. That's the power that you
Right.
have, right? You can step back
Right.
and you can observe that. It's
And
like, why am I thinking that?
you kind of learn that through, meditation and mindfulness and things like that. And those are things that like saved my life during
Yeah.
this entire journey, is doing things like that, and meditating and self-reflecting. And
So meditation is kind of something that you've incorporated.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I started it like the first year, and I started with just doing like guided meditations, on YouTube and stuff. And then
Yeah.
now I just kind of do it on my own. And it's really difficult to do when you're like super itchy and in pain and you just want to like
I can.
crawl
Yeah.
out of your body. But you know even like 5 minutes a day is, like it can change your brain and rewire your brain. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you meditate, how do you like to meditate? Like, what do you do? Do you set like a timer and just try to sit in a room, or what's your practice with it?
um, so usually I try to do a morning meditation. I think those are really important. But not, I don't do it for a long time in the morning, maybe like 10, 15 minutes. So I usually put some binaural beats on.
Okay.
I love them. So I usually put some beats on and just kind of meditate however much I feel I need to, I guess. I guess I just kind of do it intuitively, like I don't
Yeah.
use a timer or anything, just to kind of get myself into a headspace. And then I pretty much end up going to sleep meditating at night too.
Yeah.
Like I kind of do a meditation when I'm laying down and then go to sleep right after, and that helps me sleep.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, that's a
pretty
good practice
much.
for sure. I mean, it doesn't take much really. I mean, 10
No,
minutes isn't very long, and it's a good way to
no.
prime yourself for the day,
Yeah,
for
it,
sure.
it helps.
So that was one of kind of the that was one of the first things that you started incorporating once you started learning more like holistic methods. What was your introduction to
Yeah.
just the more holistic path for you?
So actually, Kratom.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to talk about
So we
Kratom. I
were gonna
figured it
talk
was a
about
part of
that
it.
anyways.
Yeah.
So I started in 2014 when I started TSW. I started researching different alternative methods for, um, topical use, internal use. I was trying to get off of a bunch of my prescriptions because I was on, like I said, like 10 or 11 prescriptions at once.
Yeah.
So I started, researching different things, and a friend of mine told me about kratom and said, maybe this will help your pain. So I researched it because, at that when I started TSW, I got paranoid about what I'm putting in my body. So now I'm
Yeah.
like, I have to research everything before I, use
Absolutely.
it, which I think everybody should do in general. But
Yeah. You should know what you're putting in your body
absolutely,
100%.
but that was
And on your
a
body.
lesson hard learned for me, through unfortunately a tragedy, but it still brought me to where I am now. So yeah, my friend told me, you should try it, and I ordered a sample online from like a trusted vendor. And I remember I was like literally in the bathtub when I tried it because I was
Yeah.
like spending most of my time there. So my mom brought it to me, and I just drank it with water. And I felt like a mood lift, And to be honest, kratom has never helped with my pain.
Mm-hmm.
I have kind of a weird body where my body like doesn't react to medications and herbs the way most other people do.
Okay.
I don't know why. I have a high tolerance to everything, and some things just don't work. So, but anyway, that was kind of like the first introduction. That was pretty early in my TSW journey. So I started after, kratom didn't help my pain, but it helped my mood.
Yeah.
And then, when your mood is better, you're able to deal with the pain better.
Right.
So that's basically, the biggest way that it helped me, and helped a little bit with anxiety and just the mood in general, the depression and things like that I was
Right.
feeling from going through the condition.
Just a little bit of an uplift.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what the introduction was. And then, as I started getting more and more fascinated with kratom and being in the kratom community, on Facebook and stuff like that, then I got to learning about other herbs and, just started studying a bunch of stuff and
Yeah.
trying a bunch of stuff. And I am down to um, one prescription now.
Oh, nice.
So, and I'm actually not even happy that I have to take that one, of course,
Well, I
but
mean, if you consider
sometimes you
where
have to.
you're, along the path,
Right. I even
you're
was
only
able
one
to get
away.
off my seizure medications 2 years ago. So this my neurologist said that my seizures were most likely caused because I was over medicated
Yeah.
and the psychological issues that I was having.
So it's just an effect of one of the other
So even he
medications.
said that it was pretty much from the medication and my mental state, because you can have seizures from, psychological
Yeah.
issues, since I was so depressed at the time. So as soon as I started TSW, I stopped having seizures. So that was interesting.
Hmm. That is
And
interesting.
stopped having kidney issues. I stopped getting sick. I would still get skin infections, obviously, because my skin was like
Yeah, it's exposed.
completely exposed to everything. Yeah, so I would still get skin infections, but the other things I had, like, the kidney issues and stomach issues, all of that just kind of like started going away.
Yeah.
And I didn't get sick as much. I don't even remember, the last time I was sick. So,
Yeah.
it changed a lot of it. So it seems like most of my health issues were caused by, the steroids and maybe some of the other medication that I was on.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I started Kratom, started getting off of a lot of pharmaceuticals, and started looking into other herbs, and then I became a pretty big advocate and activist, I guess you could say,
Yeah, let's talk about
in
that.
the community. So I worked with a few different groups. So first I worked with a group called Kratom United, and we did a lot of calls to action when people, to try to keep it legal.
Yeah.
And
So was your involvement because did it start with just educating people, or was it in a direct response to, for the folks listening, they don't know that Kratom was under attack pretty recently, and it still may be, I don't know, you tell me, but it
it
was
is,
going to
yeah.
be Scheduled 1.
Yeah, so in 2000, so I started taking it in 2014, and I started pretty much educating people on it. So that was the main
Yeah.
main thing,
Just to tell people
to
about, yeah.
at the beginning, and to try to stop, because the FDA and government has been demonizing it so much, and to try to get some positive press out there. So in 2016 was when the DEA tried to ban
Right.
it
Try to reclassify it as
as a
a
Schedule
Schedule 1
One.
narcotic, right? Saying that
Yep.
there's no,
No medicinal
yeah, no
value.
medicinal value, and it's highly addictive.
Yes.
Um, but from my understanding and from my experience, I've been using it for 60 days now. I've had no negative side effects, and I don't see where there isn't any value for people.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have met people that literally could walk from using a wheelchair or a cane or
Yeah,
walker, and they could walk normally now because of,
right,
and that's why it inspired me so much to, be a voice for people. And, with my TSW, it kind of created a unique story in the fact that it
right,
was a little bit different than,
right,
all the a lot there's a lot of focus, on addiction and getting off of opiates with kratom. So,
right,
and I kind of wanted to show the other benefits of it as well, for
right.
the help with anxiety and depression and PTSD and the things that I was experiencing. And even topical use is something that it's used for. So,
I did not know that.
yeah.
I know people. You can. I know it'll be in pills. Obviously, they'll put in capsules or like powders. People would drink it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was topical as well.
Yeah, they make like soaps and
Oh,
lotions,
that's
and
cool. It
it's
makes
supposed to be
sense,
good for
right? I
your
mean,
skin.
I use CBD topically, and it has been game changing.
Yeah,
So I can
I've
imagine
used it on my
Kratom.
skin, but I didn't really heal it. But it can provide
CBD or
some
Kratom.
CBD.
Okay.
Well, I've used both, but
Yeah.
so yeah, that's pretty much how I got involved in it. And then last year, I helped organize a rally in DC. In, I think it was June. I unfortunately didn't get to see it in person because I flared really bad.
Yeah.
So I was working with this nonprofit organization and we organized the rally together. It was like a few people, and it was an amazing experience. It was so difficult,
Yeah.
something I'd never done before.
Where were they? Where was the not for profit located? Were they located in DC?
No, this was
Who are they? What's their name?
National Kratom Coalition.
Okay.
They're one of three um, biggest advocacy organizations.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a
So
big undertaking.
yeah, I was really nervous about it, and it's something I had never done before. So organizing a rally is a lot of work. A lot of work, especially in DC.
Yeah.
So I was literally pretty much like working like 12 hours a day on this, like,
Yeah.
trying to organize like speakers and, getting the equipment and getting the needed donations. And, there's so many things to it. And I was so, so, so sad that I didn't get to make it in person.
Yeah, you put in all these hours.
Yeah, I was like crying that entire week,
Yeah.
because we did basically what the plan was we would have the rally one day, and then the rest of the week would be lobbying and meeting with legislators, and
Yeah.
people would go and meet. So a lot of people stayed the whole week.
Hmm.
So I was just like crying at home all week, but I was
Man.
proud at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, at least you were able to see it through to the completion, even though you weren't really there. Do you think
It
maybe
really
like
sucked.
the date coming up caused the flare maybe some, like the added
It definitely
stress?
made it
Because it's
worse.
stressful to have an event, you know what I mean? Especially when you want things to
It
be
definitely made
successful.
it worse, yeah, because I was putting in a lot of work into it. And yeah, I was kind of starting to flare already, but then it just got really bad, and I was oozing from my neck and face, and there was no way I could
Yeah,
go
it's not
in
even an
person. But I
option.
think it definitely, yeah, made it worse to some extent because it was so stressful, organizing this big thing, and are people going to show up, and, how's this going to work out? And,
Yeah,
it was a lot of work and a lot of organization. And then after that, this past year in 2018, Naperville tried to ban it on a city level.
oh,
So that's the
that's the
city I
sneaky
grew up
thing
in.
that cities will do, right? They'll do their own
Yeah, sometimes
ban
you
on a
literally don't
substance.
even get like a heads up. Sometimes they just
It's
ban
just
it.
oh
And,
yeah,
thankfully we got a heads up on this one. So I attended meetings with city council members to educate them. Um, and we made like little booklets and stuff to hand out to them.
yeah.
And that was nerve-wracking for me because I'd never done anything like that before either. So like
You're
going
just
to
doing it.
speak to lawmakers, I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh no, I've never done this before."
just figure it
But it
out.
actually turned out great, and it was a great experience and a great learning experience for me. And
Yeah,
I taught them a lot about it, and they just kind of said, "You know what? This isn't really our place,
yeah,
to do this. If the FDA is going to do something, it's, their job basically." So they kind of just dropped it for now. It's not completely dropped or, tabled, but it's on hold right
at least
now.
for now. Yeah,
So they're, wanting to see what's going to happen
yeah,
federally and state-wise to make any decision. But I do think the meetings definitely helped because every single person that we went to meet with was completely clueless about it and how
yeah.
much it can help. And
Yeah, it's amazing how clueless these legislators are, and they're so quick to make a law about something they have no clue about. They've never experienced, or they don't know anybody who has experienced. It's just so crazy. You know what I mean? Just off of a fear that they have. You know what I mean? Or just a misconception that they have.
yeah, and there's a lot of politics involved,
Yeah,
so
a lot of big money being
I
spent too
mean,
by big.
obviously, I already knew that before going to those meetings, but when I really went to those meetings and spoke with the mayor and
And then you
things
really
like that,
understand.
then I was kind of seeing the inside, and it was like, people sway their votes this way and that way, no
Yeah,
matter what the issue is. And,
right.
y- you know,
just kind of looking out for their own best interest or their
Right.
party's interest
So
or
you can imagine how it is on, a state and federal level,
yeah.
especially. It's even crazier.
It is. It's really crazy. Especially, I mean, they're banning plants essentially. I mean, that's what
Right.
nature. You know what I mean? I mean, for the folks listening that don't know, I mean, kratom it's in the coffee family. It grows in Southeast Asia.
Right.
There's a lot of talk
Forgot to
because
mention that.
no, no worries. Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of talk because it does attach to the opioid receptors. So I guess in a technical sense, you could call it an opioid, right?
I would say it is an opioid, but I would call it an atypical opioid
Yeah,
because it
absolutely.
doesn't bind to the receptors in the same way that traditional opioids do.
Right.
Um,
Traditional being synthetic, by the way, right?
right. And cheese and coffee and chocolate are also technically opioids. They bind to the opioid receptors as
Oh,
well.
okay.
So we don't go and call cheese and chocolate opioids,
Right.
But I mean, I would say it is, an opioid, but just an atypical one because it doesn't work in the same way. And we just need more research done. We need,
Right.
human studies done on
Right. Now,
it.
is it it's not physically addictive, is it? Is there some
I
argument there? I mean, from my understanding, physically addictive is like, when you stop taking it, are you having withdrawals to where like the body needs, think of like, like heroin, for example. You get physically sick, and it happens with a lot of opioids, right? You stop taking those
so
and you get sick.
there is a lot of controversy with this, and a lot of kratom advocates will tell you no, it's not addictive at all. It's just like coffee. I would say there's definitely a dependency component.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, there's a difference between dependency and addiction.
Yeah.
But there is definitely people who get very dependent on it and do have withdrawal
Absolutely.
physically,
Physically or
um,
mentally?
both physically and mentally, I would say.
Yeah.
So it would be milder than opiate withdrawal or,
Uh-huh.
synthetic opioid withdrawal, but they would still get some sort of physical reaction like
Really?
fatigue or pain, return of their original pain for
Right.
starters.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that an addiction, like the return of the pain, or is that just,
the return of
the
the pain
absent of
isn't, no,
right.
but they do. There is a lot of people that truly do
Yeah.
get very dependent on it, and I mean, you can
It's easy
get
to do, I
dependent
think.
on
Yeah.
anything,
Absolutely.
even like Facebook, and
Yeah, it's important to assess your personality, but I mean, there
yeah,
there is a cognitive benefit to it. I mean, I'll take it. I like to take it before podcasting. I'll take I don't know. Sometimes I'll take like 3 grams, and
yeah,
it just gives me this heightened sense of like a mental acuity, and
hmm
I just feel a little bit sharper,
yeah,
and I don't feel like high or anything. I've taken other nootropics before, and it feels pretty similar to those, but it's just a little bit cleaner.
yeah.
You know what
It
I
gives
mean?
you that like little bit of energy boost, but
Right.
not like
Yeah. But it's definitely
crazy.
something that, if you have a tendency towards like depressive traits or anything like that, or if you just have an addictive personality, like it does make you feel good. You can feel good from this. So I
Right.
can see how it's something to where it's like, man,
Well,
but you can do that with anything. It could be gambling.
to be honest, when I first started it, I took it daily for a year and a half.
Okay.
So when I got it off of it, after a year and a half to take a break, I did feel like crap.
Did you? Like a
So
big crash?
yeah, I've been through opiate withdrawal before, so it was not like that, but
Uh-huh.
it was like I was fatigued and cranky, and so I think there is, physiological and,
Yeah.
psychological and physical component to it.
Yeah.
So I'm one of the people that does experience it a little bit, not
Right.
like anything crazy, like to the point that, you can't function, but
Yeah.
it's definitely there.
There. And I have no
So,
idea. I'm just speculating.
and
It's all anecdotal for
since
me.
then, now I always advocate that people should take breaks from it frequently.
Tolerance breaks.
Yeah, and for example, now I don't take it daily. I take it maybe a couple times a week.
Okay.
So, uh, you
Is
know,
there a
if
particular?
people have to take it every day, it's hard for people with chronic pain to take a tolerance break because they're in pain and they need
Right.
the relief. But I highly suggest it. And a lot of the people that, for example, say that there is no dependency um, factor to it are people that have been taking it for like 3 years straight and never took a break.
Yeah.
So they don't even, they
Yeah.
haven't even,
Yeah. Yeah.
experienced it. But it's definitely individual because our body chemistries are so different. So
Everybody's different for sure.
some people won't feel it. Other people will think it's like coffee,
Yeah.
and other people will have it worse,
Yeah, everybody's different, and I guess if you consider, I guess the circumstance, right? I mean, if you went from taking a synthetic opioid every day to taking kratom every day, at least that's a good step, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because a lot of people have definitely seen success with kicking opioids and some pain management, but yeah, I don't have the answer.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what the proper dosage is. But there, so are you too familiar with the different strains
Yeah.
of kratom? Could you explain that for the folks?
Well, so I guess the most important thing is the vein colors,
Yeah.
first of all. So, um, red, white, and green, and there's that little poem that goes, white is for flight, uh, red is for bed, and green is in between.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
easy to remember, kind of.
Yeah, that is a good one.
So
Yeah.
the white strains tend to promote most energy. Green strains would be under that, kind of like a more balanced one in between red and white.
Yeah.
And then red would
Red is
be
for bed.
the most relaxation promoting.
Oh,
And then
okay.
you have the different, they're named by the region where they come from. So, like, red Bali comes from Bali,
Bali.
obviously. And,
Yeah.
there's Thai and Malay and all these different other
Yeah.
kinds. But it's very, a lot of trial and error goes into it because, when somebody's new to Kratom, they're like so overwhelmed by how many different ones there are. And honestly, I think there's too much now, and it's a lot of
Yeah.
marketing
Yeah.
tactics.
Yeah.
Because when I first started taking kratom, 5 years ago, it was like you would have like one of like each color or like two of each color, and now it's like you got like 10 different greens and 10 different reds.
Right. Yeah.
You can
You don't
buy
know what's
like,
what.
yeah, and I think a lot of it is like the same stuff and it's marketing. So,
Yeah. That's
you know.
unfortunate. A lot of things.
That's just my
Mark.
opinion. I don't know that for a fact, but
Yeah.
I've noticed that I could get like two different strains from like one vendor and they're like exactly the
Yeah.
same. So,
Well, sourcing is important though, right? I mean, that's one of the big things with kratom, right? You want to
yeah.
make sure that you're getting like a good quality source.
Yeah.
Do you have any like recommendations for folks on that?
Yeah, so well, I work for a company
Yeah. You can plug them if you want.
doing customer service. I'm not a sales rep, so I don't get like
Yeah.
commission or anything. But so the company is called Top Extracts,
Okay.
and um been around since 2014, and we are almost full CGMP now, so um, all according to the guidelines.
Yeah.
So, which is really important, and I do think some sort of regulation is probably coming soon for kratom,
Yeah.
which is better than
Probably. It's good
making
to
it
have regulation.
illegal.
And for the folks listening that don't know, CGMP is current good manufacturing practices, right? So
Right.
for any sort of like manufacturing.
Right.
But
Which very, when it comes down to it, a lot of vendors don't do that, and it's pretty awful. They're just packaging in
oh,
their
it's rampant
house.
in
You
the
don't know
supplement
what's going
industry. Oh
on.
yeah.
And with
Dudes making protein in their
yeah,
bathtubs.
awful,
Yeah.
awful. And it's scary because you need to know what you're putting in your body.
100%.
So Top Extracts is all lab tested. Everything is packaged properly. We
Yeah.
actually use a co-packer, so
Where are they based?
in Lisle here, so
Okay, so they're
close by here.
here in the
Yeah.
Chicago area. Cool. I've been using this company, the Urban Ice Organics. I've been
Oh yeah, I know the owner of that company.
yeah, I think they're based in Vegas. I'm new to Kratom. I've just been trying it for 60 days. I did it consistently for the first like 30 days, and then it's just been kind of it hasn't been very consistent these last 2 months or this last 30 days, just kind of more intermittently as I needed it or as I kind of feel like I
Yeah.
need to pick me up.
Urban Ice is a really good company, and they're full CGMP, so
Yeah,
they're a very good company.
I'm not really familiar with what all is even available. I just watched the
Leap of Faith.
yeah, the Leap of Faith
Yeah.
documentary. What were your thoughts on that?
Um, it was a good
Are
movie.
you tired of hearing about it?
No, I just have maybe some different opinions than
Yeah.
other people do. So, it was. I'm not like going to trying to say negative things, but just in my personal opinion, there's too much focus on addiction and
Yeah.
not so much focus on the other benefits of it. So there was a lot of the majority of the focus of that documentary was pretty much addiction.
Yeah.
And whether we like it or not, there is a stigma around addiction.
Mhm.
And so, unfortunately, when, for example, a person who used heroin for 10 years, goes into a legislator's office and they're telling them their story and they're like, I was in jail for 10 years and I was shooting up heroin. They're going to look at that person differently, unfortunately, than somebody else who has chronic pain or
Yeah.
something else. So, I've just been telling people that I think it's important to highlight those other benefits because, the whole addiction aspect kind of got us into the door, but now it's like, Kratom has so many other great benefits that we should, showcase. And I felt like the movie
Didn't highlight those
didn't
enough.
highlight those.
Yeah.
And it also talked about it a lot as a drug and a treatment and a cure, which it's not. It's a supplement.
Yeah.
And precisely that's what the FDA, has issues with is medical claims and calling it a cure and
That's true.
treatment because it's not. I mean,
But
it
is
helps
it
you
kind of
with
both depending on how the person's using it? You know what I mean? Like some people do use it like as medicine.
they
Is it just the terminology that we use that makes it kind of weird?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it does come down to like linguistics and um like the FDA is very, very strict on,
Yeah.
using the words cure and treat.
Right.
And, you get to this point where it's like, we have freedom of speech, so we should be able to say whatever we want. If I
Yeah.
feel like it treated whatever, I should be able to say that. But unfortunately, we're in this place where, we could get it taken away, so we kind of have to play by their rules.
Yeah, well, you definitely want to be careful with the words that you use, right? I mean, you don't want people going around selling snake oil, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah, it is difficult because people are like, I want to tell my story, the way it is because for some people it truly does pretty much help with almost everything.
Yeah, well, there's a spectrum of benefits, right?
Right.
Especially depending on the person.
Yeah, and it totally depends. Like for me, it doesn't do that much, to be
Yeah.
honest. And I guess like I said, it helps with my mood a little bit, but as I mentioned before, I react to a lot of things very differently than most people. So,
Yeah.
um it does not do a lot for me.
Mhm.
It could give me a little bit of energy or a little bit of a mood boost, but like for my severe anxiety and panic things, it doesn't touch
Doesn't
that
do.
at all, and it
Have you
doesn't touch my pain at all.
really? Have you ever tried ashwagandha?
I
I
have,
don't know. I keep
yes.
getting tongue tied on that one.
And I
What was your
actually,
experience with
I
that?
do love that plant in general.
Yeah.
It's great for the adrenal glands as well as and stress
Yeah,
and
for
such.
stress and anxiety and
But the
immune.
thing with adaptogens in
Yeah.
general for my condition anyway, for TSW is you don't want to make your immune system too high
Yeah.
because then it essentially can turn into an autoimmune sort of
Yeah.
thing. So
The body
it's
starts
kind
turning
of
on
like a
itself.
fine balance.
Yeah.
it did help me a little bit with stress, but I stopped taking it because I wasn't sure if it was like potentially making my skin worse or
Yeah.
and it's kind of the same thing with kratom. I've been experimenting over the last like year or so
Yeah.
because basically what happens in TSW is steroids close blood vessels down.
Okay, so some
So
vasoconstriction there.
so when you get off of them, there's vasoconstriction or vasodilation.
Yep.
Sorry,
Hmm.
when you get off of them, so the vessels dilate, and that's what
Yeah.
causes the
So rush of
redness
blood and
and the ooze and everything else that comes out.
yeah.
So and kratom does have some vasodilation properties.
Okay.
So I started to kind of question, is
Yeah.
this potentially making it worse if I take too much, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I recommended it for my girlfriend, and she dove into the research. She likes to research
I
everything,
do
and
too.
she's kind of had a little bit of a reaction, and we're trying to figure it out. And she found out that yeah, it does have like an upregulation on your immune
It
system.
does,
Kratom
yes.
does, and then she found that ashwagandha is a little bit more.
It's a little bit more subtle, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, it affects your immune system, but it's a little bit more immune, like regulating as for like
Right.
stabilization. Less more like upregulating, kind of stabilizes it. But still, I mean, anything that's affecting your immune system, if you're already having some sort of response,
Right.
you don't necessarily want to play with those things if you don't have to.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing with mine too. I can't take things that like boost my immune system too much.
Yeah, you
I
gotta be
have
a
to
little bit
take more
careful.
of like the regulators, the things that will balance it out more.
Yeah,
So I have to be careful with that. And right now, I do take supplements right now, like vitamins and things like that. But right now, I'm just pretty much focusing on the traditional Chinese medicine.
yeah,
And I've been kind of learning about it and researching it on my own. I always look at the ingredients of what I get
yeah.
from the practitioner because I'm so interested in it.
It's
And it is
fascinating stuff.
fascinating.
Yeah,
I've researched so much stuff over these few years that it's been, life changing for me because and I can help other people now that
yeah.
people that struggle with anxiety. I can suggest things and
Hmm.
share what, unfortunately, even if they don't work for me,
They might work for
they might
somebody
work.
else. Yeah, there's a
Right.
lot of
So
things out there to
so
try.
I've helped a lot of people. So that's been kind of one of those things too that kind of got me through the whole difficult period is just being able to help other people
Yeah,
that are struggling with, whatever it may be, whether it's TSW or some other chronic health condition or depression or,
yeah.
anything. So,
Kind of found a purpose through your pain.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I have to say the last couple months I've been kind of struggling more. So, last few months have been a struggle since before Christmas. Just kind of got in one of those, I guess, dark night of the soul
yeah,
periods where I've been more depressed and more anxious, and after you just get tired, after
yeah.
you spend 5 hours in one room by
Right.
yourself.
Yeah.
When I started TSW, all of the friends, quote unquote, that I had pretty much abandoned me and
Mm.
weren't there. So pretty much all I had was my parents, and it's so it's so alienating and isolating and dehumanizing. Like when you're looking at what's supposed to be skin, and it's just like
Yeah. And you.
looks like it's rotting away. And I literally have issues now, like to the point that it's become so traumatic that it's hard for me to look at myself in the mirror, and it's hard to,
Yeah.
like, when I go into like bright sunlight, it's like really difficult for me to look at,
Yeah.
like, so it's created all these new fears and like traumas. And so
Yeah.
that's
Well,
kind
and
of what
then
I'm dealing with now.
and then there's that infamous question that I'm sure you asked probably 1,000 times, especially in the beginning, like why? Like why is this happening? Like yesterday I was fine. Like why today? like the human body is such a weird thing. You know what I mean? Like you can be so
Yeah.
fine for so long, and then all of a sudden just something pops up. Oh, you have this huge cyst on, like on your back or something. Like you don't know.
Yeah.
Like just the body just changes.
Yeah, and in TSW, it's a very it's constantly cycling. So you could have a period of 2 or 3 months where your skin looks great, like nothing ever happened, and then all of a sudden it
Yeah.
just happens. And it's happened to me more times than I can count. And that's the most crushing part of it is because when I'm doing better, it's like I get a taste of life,
Yeah.
and then it gets snatched away again.
Yeah, 'cause
And
well, how
that's the
long is this gonna
hardest
last?
part.
You know what I mean?
And
And then
this current flare that I'm in now has been lasting for over a year
yeah, I saw you
straight,
said that.
which is the longest that I've
Yeah.
ever had. So that's why I guess these past couple months I've been, more depressed and not doing well and
Yeah, and it
yeah.
doesn't help this time of year. I mean, it's you see increases in depression anyway. I mean, it's shorter days. I'm sure that doesn't help either.
Weirdly, like prior to this winter, I was actually always doing better in winter.
Really?
I have no idea. Usually it's supposed to be the opposite with skin conditions.
Who knows?
But, and I actually do really like, fall and winter because I don't handle heat very well with my skin
Okay.
and
Yeah.
sweating hurts really bad.
Yeah.
So, like, I can't even, work out. I can do like yoga and stuff like that, but I
Yeah.
can't
So no
like do
saunas or anything
cardio.
like that for you.
Yeah, no. Hurts so
Man.
bad.
Yeah, that's interesting because like sweating is such a healthy process for the
It
body to
is.
to release toxins and different things. So, um, I mean, if you can't do that,
And I mean, I have sweat a lot, like just naturally, even from just
right?
probably detoxing and
Yeah,
stuff.
and when you're sleeping, I mean, there's going to be
Oh
some
yeah,
sweat and some
I get a
evaporation
lot.
and different things. But like a good heavy sweat
Oh
from just like
yeah,
an external force
but
like
it's
that,
like
it's
so.
painful.
It feels like literally acid is being like thrown on my skin
Yeah.
when if I like sweat a lot.
Hmm.
But in between flares, I try to do as much as I can.
Yeah.
But my body's still, I don't have the endurance. So walking usually, like fast walking too, is what I usually go to.
Yeah.
Walking like 5 miles a day or
Yeah.
whatever, and then doing yoga in the evening and
Yeah.
things
You ever
like
do
that.
anything like isolation stuff? You can even do it with a belt. Just create tension. And there's not a lot of movement, but it's just that flexion where you create tension, and that can help, mimic that resistance training without
Like with
having to do a
resistance
lot.
bands.
Yeah, you can do it with resistance
I was
bands.
actually about to buy resistance bands
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
yesterday
but
on
you
Amazon.
you can even do it with like a towel because
That's
you don't
true.
even need movement. You just need to be able to create tension, or like you go to a wall like a good steady post and like just push into it as hard as you can. You're creating all this tension all through your body, so it's like creating like a push, and or
That's
you can be like
that's a
here
good idea
pushing.
actually.
Yeah, so it doesn't take a lot of movement.
And it
Um,
could kind of like release some like
yeah, yeah, and it
negative
yeah, it,
energies,
it,
you
it, it
know?
is resistance training, it's strength training, so it'll
Yeah,
help.
because my body is definitely, weak from being in bed for so
Yeah,
long.
yeah. So
It's difficult, so
isometric training is great for, I mean, especially for people. I'm really into like longevity and sustainability, and as people get into advanced age, as we all do, we all get older. Like you have to find a different way to train. You
yeah.
can't always go as hard as when you were younger. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So finding different ways to do it, it definitely helps. And I've from what I've learned, especially from this guy by the name of Steve Maxwell, he's up in his 60s, maybe 70s. I don't know how old he is, but he always preaches a lot about doing like the isometrics because that tension is just so good for the muscles and it's low impact. It's easy for you.
Oh yeah, that is I'll look into that.
Yeah.
I might have to hit you up for some other ideas too when I'm feeling better.
Yeah.
Right now my arm is completely covered,
Take
so
your time. Yeah. What's been the longest period in between your flares?
probably 3 months.
3 months. Yeah, it's not much relief. Yeah.
No. It usually would be like 2 or 3 months and then like 5 or 6 months of a flare. Um, And then so last year, or no, 2017 it was now. I keep thinking, I keep forgetting it's 2019. Um,
It's just a
so
big blend. It's
2017
all a
I
blur.
flared from like March to October, and then I was fine from October until Christmas, and then 2 days after Christmas I just started flaring bad, and then so it's lasted since then.
It's just been this whole
It's gotten
over a year
like
now.
my face and neck have gotten better, but it's on my hands, and
Yeah.
this one arm is completely like raw and oozing and bleeding, and
Yeah. Just something to deal with, huh?
yeah, I'm hoping this Chinese medicine will help. It's actually helped quite a few people in TSW with this same practitioner
Yeah.
that's taken an interest in it. So I'm really hoping that will help. Even though I got kind of a negative reaction with the two formulas, it made it worse.
Yeah.
It still kind of gave me hope because it did something.
Yeah.
Normally, like the herbs that I've taken
Just
in the past
nothing.
and tried, it was like nothing happened, you
Yeah.
know? So this gave me hope that at least, my body's reacting to it and it's trying to do something.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of, traditional Chinese medicine has so many different herbs and
Right.
combinations and stuff. So it's just a matter of like getting the formula right. And
Yeah. Well, the human body is it's an amazing thing, and
it
it's
is.
always trying to find homeostasis in its own way, and yeah, I mean, for thousands of years, humans have been using plants and different,
Oh, yeah,
natural remedies to heal themselves. So everybody's different. It's just kind of finding what works for you.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, I can't even, I'm amazed at how much my body has gone through and that I'm still here and I don't have, I mean, like scarring or anything like that from it. Like the bottom half of my body has been healed for like 2 years and it's like nothing happened.
Oh, yeah.
And but it's just amazing to see like I've shed so much like skin I couldn't even tell you like
Yeah.
it's been like a snake like
Yeah.
shedding like every
Just
single day and like so much shed and you just when you're in that like horrible state you feel like it's never gonna end but then it does and then you're like wow like the
it's like,
body is
whoa.
amazing
Yeah.
like it's coming
Yeah.
it comes back from some pretty rough stuff
Yeah. Well, one day this will all just be a memory.
yeah, yeah, I'm waiting for that day really anxiously now.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. Well, you're helping a lot of people in the meantime, right? I mean,
trying to,
you're
yeah.
talking and you're lobbying and stepping outside your comfort zone. So, I mean, I'm sure a lot of
Yeah.
people really appreciate that for sure. And I appreciate you sharing your story. I mean, it's definitely, I'm sure, not an easy story to share.
No, it's not. I usually cry. It's surprising I didn't cry today, but
Yeah,
I
no.
usually cry
You
when
said
I'm
you were so
talking
nervous
about it.
before this. Everything's just been super chill. It's been such a good
Yeah,
conversation.
I get nervous about literally like everything.
Yeah,
So it's
understandable.
hard. But thank you for letting me share my story here and
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm
giving the
just
space to talk about
it's been so
both
great.
kratom
Yeah,
and
it's been great
everything.
like learning from you and just hearing it all. I'm gonna turn the floor over to you. Um, anything that you want to like just promo, plug, direct people to websites or your YouTube page, anything that you just want to share with the folks.
Um, Pretty much just, I guess, if you want to get in direct touch with me, I don't know if you can
Yep.
link
Yeah,
all my
I have
stuff.
show notes. I'll put all the links in
Yeah,
there. Yeah.
so
So like I'll put a link in there
since
for
Nina
it.
Ajdin, most people don't know how to spell it, so if you put it in there. So I guess just my profile on Instagram, people can reach me directly there. And then for information about TSW, you can go to www.itsan.com, ITSAN, no, .org, sorry, ITSAN.org. So for anybody that is using topical steroids, I would check it out for sure.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for kratom, lab tested kratom, topextracts.com.
Yeah, I'll put that in
We
the
do
show
we
notes.
do sell it. Despite the company name, we actually sell regular powder and regular capsules, not extracts. So,
Okay.
but yeah, it's all lab tested, pure. It's an awesome company. The owner is an awesome guy, and so
Awesome.
there you go.
That's
That's
everything.
about it.
That's about it for now,
Yeah,
huh?
that's about it.
Hey, thank you so much, Nina.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.